I'm David Marsh. Welcome to Exploring the Human Journey.
Exploring the Human Journey.
It was actually in the pool when I was swimming laps, and there was nobody else in the pool. And I said, what am I going to do? And this deep voice says, massage. And I went, massage? I get them on me. And the voice says, no, go to massage college. At 40 years old, I went to massage college. During that time, I also had gotten a divorce, so I walked out of the house with 2 young children, new career, didn't know where I was going, but I just knew I was on the right path. I had this gentleman come in as a new client. He had the bluest crystal eyes I had ever seen, and I knew there was just something special about this client. And he said to me, I want you to do something a little different today. And he's like, I want you to place your hands here, and I want you to feel the energy, and I want you to move some of that blockage out. And I stared at him and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, yes, you do. And he said something interesting. He said to me, it's time for you to do your work. I don't know why I asked. I said, where did you come from? And he said, I'm just a traveler. And then when I finished the session and got quiet after that, he said, see, I'm here to tell you it's time to do your work. Never saw him again. Don't know where he came from. A couple of months later, I'm working on another client, and all of a sudden I had this vision, and I saw this beautiful Native American woman galloping across some plains. She ended up going to this, it was a brave sitting up against a tree with an arrow in his shoulder, and she got off her horse, started tending to him, and took things out of the pouch. And in my mind, while I'm working on this client, I'm saying, what is this? Because it was like a movie screen. And the voice said, it is you, white dove. And she said, you had a vision of a past life doing this healing work to remind you that you carried the healing over to this life. Instead of blocking it, I allowed it. So then during my sessions, messages started coming through because I was already on their energy field anyway. So I let that happen. So I started something, and it was called intuitive massage. Half my life was lived in the corporate world, and now I'm actually living the life I was meant to live. One thing that I have learned on this human journey, no matter who's around you, what they're saying to you, what may or may not be happening around you, always follow your heart. It'll never steer you wrong.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. My special guest today is Pam Sears, the one and only. Pam, how's it going?
It's always going awesome.
So I got to meet you at Dr. Lori's 50th birthday party. Shout out Dr. Lori. And you had a table and you had readings there, and people would come up and they would get information, and they all seemed to be really into it. And I observed, I'm like, wow. And that table the whole night never stopped. You had people there the whole night.
Yeah.
Tell me about who you are and what you do and the experience that people work with you.
You know, I love helping people. I know that there's so many people out trying to get answers and guidance and seeking, you know, something a lot of times outside themselves when it really should be internal. Yeah. And I just love it when they sit there and they say, I've never had a reading before. And I'll ask them, do you have a specific question? No, I just want to know. Give me an answer. Just give me something. So, you know, I get into that energy of who they are. I get quiet. I listen. I'll use the cards as a tool, but that's really just a tool. The information is really coming in while I'm shuffling with the energy.
Oh, so you're already getting downloaded.
I'm already getting them. Yeah. And I do it a little bit different. Some people don't want others to touch their cards. I was guided. I want them to touch the cards. I want them to put their energy.
That was the experience I had. You said you shuffle the deck.
You shuffle the deck. Yeah. You tell me what pile to pick up. And it's been fabulous how that's worked. So I love being able to sit there and I'll turn a card over and I can see their eyes pop out like, wow, how did that happen? Yeah. I was like, this is what's going on with you right now. And they're like, yeah, yeah. So that's kind of how I get into it. I don't really like to go and talk about a lot of future stuff. It's just not something I'm comfortable with, because I don't want to give you something. I may hear something, but I don't want to necessarily give it to you, because maybe there's something on your journey you need to experience. And if you know something's going to happen, you might not get that lesson.
Yeah. So you leave it up to them to be creative in their future.
Exactly.
So you've got this energy sensory, this perception of who this other person is, and you're beginning to get information. Do you see images? Is it information? Is it sound?
know, a lot of times I don't hear an audible voice. It's like a typewriter across my brain. And the words pop up. As far as visions go, I see a person. I can describe who that person is. Sometimes they'll give me a name. Sometimes they won't. They have their reasons, maybe in the beginning, why they're not giving a lot of information. So I feel them a lot. Feel them, see them, hear them. Some people can just say, oh, I see somebody standing right there. That's not what I do. I see them. Yeah, I see them in my head.
To that point, that person standing next to you, when you and I met, you're like, hey, I have this feeling like there's somebody next to me. And you felt like it was some sort of an ancient, maybe a Chinese wisdom that was giving information as a spirit guide. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, he was quite clear on showing me who he was. I didn't get a name. But he was definitely for you. And I felt definitely it was a guide.
Now, to that point, I am so excited. So I've recently read Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. And you were like, yeah.
That's my favorite book ever.
I know. If you haven't read Journey of Souls, turn this off, go watch it. Read the book. It's amazing.
It is amazing.
And then Destiny of Souls is the second book, and it's even further in advance of all of the things. So that gave me the context of, I'm here having different lifetimes to have this soul journey, and I'm learning these things, which was super cool. And I now have other spiritual guides that want to work with me. And so that was the context of the book after he did hypnotherapy. And so when you say there's somebody new that wants to come in and work with you, to me, that no longer sounds weird, but maybe some years ago, I would have been like, I don't know what you're talking about. It sounds super crazy. For the person that's watching this, maybe they're thinking, I don't know what you're talking about. Give some presence to spirit guides.
They say that we're all born with that one guardian angel that stays with us. From beginning to end, and that's true. However, we have different lessons on our journey, and I believe that we are in agreement prior to coming here that there's going to be certain helpers and guides that step in during a new phase of our life. It would make sense. People come and go in our lives all the time in the physical. Why not guides? And the guides can include animals. Not just, most of the guides, I would say, have probably lived on this earth before, because it would make sense. They have that ability to help us. So they're going to come and go as needed. And I felt that there was this new phase of your life happening, and that you had a new guide that was going to step in and come and work with you.
I get this visual, like when I was a kid in junior high and high school, I played sports, and I had a basketball coach, I had a baseball coach, and then you go to the next grade, and then maybe there's a different coach for the next level. So I could maybe see that, my caveman analogy, if you will. I could see how, okay, well, that coach he did his thing for that season in your life. Now you've got a new coach, and I could see how that would work.
Now, there may be 2 or 3 that overlap at the same time. And that would make sense. I've had that.
Well, I could see a sports coach, and then a cooking coach.
Exactly.
And then a fashion coach. My fashion coach isn't doing very good, though, I got to tell you.
I think you look fabulous today. Actually, it's one of my favorite colors.
Woo,
so,
nice.
So, they're going to come in. I had a specific one that showed up on New Year's Day. Didn't really quite understand what was happening. And I thought, whoa, I was sitting on the computer and I had this vision and somebody's trying to talk to me, and I'm going, whoa, wait, that's not who I had, this is not who's been talking to me. And I got quiet and I got to take a look and I said, okay, talk to me. I never got his name. It was about that long, and I just decided to name him Jay because I couldn't understand what he was saying. But he was elven in his features.
Yeah.
And
you're pointing to the ears. Where he had pointy ears?
Yeah, he did.
And you could see this kind of visual.
I saw this, and he had a long robe on, and he actually stepped out of a tree.
Ooh.
And there were like some little small, I'm not really sure what they were, cherubs or little small, maybe elementals that were with him. And I've always loved trees. I've got trees in my house. I've got a picture of a tree in my living room. And so he stepped out of the tree and he actually had this like a little whiteboard. And I would go, wow. And he wrote some answers on this whiteboard. And I go, that's like current mixed with elven. It was like, he's like, that's how I roll.
Wow.
So
that's how I roll.
And there was a time shortly after that.
Me and my posse. That's how I roll. I'm an elf.
That's how I roll. So I'm going down the road and somebody's trying to make contact with me. And I'm not the best driver in the world, as my friends would tell you. But I was like, okay, someone's trying to communicate. I'm driving down the road here. I got to communicate with the road. And they're like, we need to talk to you right now. And it was like, I knew at that moment if I didn't pull over, I was probably going to get into an accident. So I'm going, who are you? Who's, when you're driving, you're not sure who's talking to you. So this car pulled in front of me, and in the license plate, it said in a tree.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, okay. All right. I pulled over. At that point in time, I don't remember what the message was.
So there's texting and driving, which is bad. And then there's listening to your guides of driving, which apparently is more encompassing.
Oh,
right?
my gosh. It was really making me nervous because I knew it was really, and the message was important. I believe it was about my little dog at the time, and she wasn't doing well, and I needed guidance. But I didn't ask for it right then and there. But I learned to pull over when I get those kind of messages.
Yeah. So people come to you and they get information, and you have encouraged myself and others to listen to your intuition to see if that information is the same, because you're like, look, you don't need me to tell you everything.
No, correct.
You need this. And so you're like, if you can't connect with your intuition, here's some things I'm sensing, which people love.
Yes. But
you're teaching how you get connected with that intuition. Talk to that point, because I love how in the feature video you said follow your heart.
I mean, anytime anyone's going to sit down and try to give you guidance or messages, you have to know in your own heart, does that resonate with me? Because I always tell them, I'm giving you information. If it doesn't resonate with you, don't worry about it, but there may be a word or a phrase or something that does resonate with them. And I say, sit with that. Yeah. Sit with that and go, some people will say at that time, I don't get it. And I said, it's okay if you don't get it. Go sit with it. And it never fails. The next day they go, wow, something came to me and you were right on with that, because I had to go and sit and listen to my own intuition. And you just kind of helped set that in motion for me. So it did make sense later on. And I said, well, good. I'm glad you went and sat with yourself. Yeah.
Now, tell me a little bit about your human experience, your journey this time around, if you will. You're a person that decided to go into massage, a practice massage school later in life in your 40s. So you were doing something and then you had a switch. So give me that kind of idea that you have these seasons in your life, a mom, a spouse, kids, and then you switch things up. And, because I know there's many people, they feel that like, I just feel like I'm supposed to do something new. Give me some of that feeling about how you were guided to kind of change direction.
I knew in my heart, once again, listen to that heart. I wasn't listening. I knew that there was a change coming, and I knew that I was no longer happy. When you feel like there's something missing in your life and you're no longer happy, that's when things start to, I call it a 2x4. You're going to get subtle messages. And then if you eventually don't listen to that, you're going to get a 2x4 across the head. And I was in the corporate world. I mean, that's what I did for 20 years. And I knew I wasn't happy, but I wouldn't leave. And,
getting a solid paycheck every
solid
time.
Insurance. I had a couple children and, mortgage bills. Fear, lots of fear, couldn't do it. And, you know, the universe stepped in and said, well, we're going to help you out here. We're going to have a new supervisor step in who doesn't like you and picks on you. And pretty soon she's going to fire you.
Wow.
And I got fired.
Yeah. And I suppose you're not accustomed to getting fired because you're probably a person that does a good job. In
I was crushed, absolutely crushed. And I sat with a friend shortly thereafter and had coffee. And I go, I got fired. And she said, congratulations.
Wow.
And I went, that's not funny. And she goes, I'm telling you, we've talked about this. You knew it was time to move on.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, you know, give myself a week to feel sorry for myself. And in my normal fashion of life, okay, what's next? Yeah. Let's get up and go. And so, yeah, I remember swimming in the pool and getting my exercise. And I said, I don't know where I belong or what I'm supposed to do. I was alone in the pool beginning. And when I heard a deep voice say, massage, I stood up because I thought somebody must have come in. Yeah. There was nobody in the pool but me. And I went, what do you mean massage? And then I understood it was time to get into the work that I agreed to do at age 40. So I was one of the oldest ones in my class. Everybody was young.
I love that how you gave presence in that feature video. Like, I don't give massages. I get massages.
I get massages. And even my own massage therapist had said, I knew you were going to do this.
Huh. Well.
But you had to realize it in your own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like even in Journey of Souls, how he says there's different seasons that we'll go through and there'll be something that just speaks to you. And then maybe we sometimes need to have, you know, somebody say, hey, it's time to have a change.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you can feel that on your intuition. So then you go to a massage therapy school. And then how do you transition into figuring out how to pay the bills and all the good stuff there?
You know, it was really kind of interesting because also during that time, I never do things small. My whole life, I've never done things small. So they said, well, you're going to go through a divorce. You're going to be a single mom with 2 kids and you're going to start a new career all at once. How's that? Petrified.
Yeah.
Absolutely petrified. But, as synchronicity works and as the universe works, I was asked to interview at a chiropractor's office because somebody was leaving, and we sat down and talked, and without me even giving her a practical, she hired me. So I started that new career. I was working, I would say it was a few months after that because I was trying to find my way. I didn't know where I belonged. You know, tried to rent some space. That just didn't work out. So this chiropractor and I we just bonded instantly. So I was there for 13 years.
Yeah.
And then it was time for that next change that hit.
So was that the time when you started your craniosacral work, or did that integrate in that?
Not at that time. When I graduated that same weekend, I also took a therapeutic touch class and infant massage class. So I was kind of during that phase at the time. Loved the therapeutic touch class, but I wasn't really working with that. I was like, no, I took the class. It was interesting, but until that gentleman showed up and kind of told me it's time to do this, that's when I started doing.
So you've got another guidepost along the way saying, okay, now it's time to turn again and go another direction. So you're really in tune to looking for the signs. And then even when you're afraid, you're like, fine, you're still willing to go those directions. Because those are the things, the synchronicities.
Yes.
Speak to that, the synchronicities.
You know, oh my gosh, when I started following synchronicities, it was just amazing to me because you get a song on the radio, you switch it to another station, that same song, and then all of a sudden later on in the day it comes on again. Anytime you have something 3 times, that is something to definitely pay attention to. And I started to realize, and I was playing my own little game with the universe. Yeah. It's like, okay, I want an answer. I would like it this, and I want it in my face. You got to be specific when you're asking questions. And boy, a car would pull in front of me and a license plate would say yes, or it would say no. And there was always something. And the more that I acknowledged, the more I got. That's what happens with synchronicity. Yes. When you acknowledge signs and say, bring them on, they bring them on. And some people say to me, I don't get any. Yes, you do. You're not really paying attention.
Tune in, right?
Tune in and ask Ask for it in your face, and you're going to get it.
Oh, so good, because this is a co-creative experience.
It is.
So you're here, but you're not alone. There are other people, if you will, here to help you. Not only the flesh and blood 3D people, but there's other spiritual guides. You're not alone. I love that.
Now, think of it like in Journey of Souls, where these people were talking about planning the life before they come, right?
Yes.
And they're up there, and this person, you're saying, well, I want to accomplish this during this phase of my life. And that person says, I'll help you with that. I'll step right in. And you go, okay, you're not going to like me very much, but I'll be that. And you're doing it from love as a soul, one soul to another.
Yes.
So I love it how some people, and I go, that person was meant to step into my life at that particular time. Even the lady that fired me.
Yep. You're like, I need somebody to fire me. She goes, look, I love you. Yeah. But I'm going to be such a mean person to you. I'm going to fire you. Yeah. Cool. High five. And it's a game. And you come here, you're like, she hurt my feelings.
She hurt my feelings. And then, I'm sure when we get to the other side, we're like, oh, that was so.
Yes. Yeah. Gail and I were talking about that in our Costa Rica video we did, which is how you laugh. Oh, my feelings were so hurt. It's hilarious. And you're like, oh, I didn't mean, I know. We high five. It's so funny. Yeah. But down here in this dimension, we're like, man, this really sucks. My job, my finances, my significant, whatever the thing.
That's the human part that, we are having a human journey, but we're on a spiritual path. And, it doesn't always go the way we plan. We plan and God laughs. Isn't that how it? Yeah.
I've heard that before. Yes. That's really good.
Yes.
So you start to go into the hands-on physical massage. You start to get intuition. You, the guy with the cool blue eyes.
Oh, yeah.
He tells you got to start. So how do you start to transition out of that?
You know what? Let me tell you the next phase when I began that turn, and began my energy work, healing work. I was on the computer in the old MSN chat days, spiritual chat rooms. I met lots of people. We would be, sitting, chatting and talking about things. And I don't know what happened. I went to log into my regular chat room and a glitch happened and I ended up in another chat room. I don't even know how I got there or what the name of it was. And I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. I was getting ready to leave that chat room and somebody said, oh, there you are. And I'm, hello. And he's like, yeah, I've been waiting for you. And I go, oh, yeah, right. I wasn't buying into it. But anyway, he had said something to me and he goes, you do energy work. And I said, yes, I do, hands-on in my practice. And he's like, I have an issue with this left low back and I want you to focus on that and direct the energy. And I go, no, I don't do that.
This is through the computer.
Through the computer.
Having a chat on somebody.
And you don't really know who that person is. And I said, you have to be physically in my room for this to happen. And he goes, no. Actually, I don't. Oh, wow. And he goes, once again, he said the same thing that first guy said to me, humor me. I want you to do this. And there was a bunch of people who all in the chat room that got quiet and they go, yeah, let's let her focus. And, I took a deep breath. I go, I'm just going to humor this guy. All of a sudden, I saw what was wrong in his left low back. It was more in the glute. I saw this swelling going on, and he's like, work with that. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing myself there with my hands in this area. And he goes, yes, I know you're here. I can feel your hands there. Oh, and wow. All of a sudden, when I was done, he goes, see? Thank you. I feel so much better. That's doing it long distance. And he said, it's time for you to start doing your additional work.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're transitioning into energy work, and it started even through a chat room, if you will. Wow.
You never know who you're talking to on the other end.
Yeah.
And the next phase of doing, talking to the other side, once again, found myself in another chat room, and I didn't know how I got there, and this lady's name illuminated.
You in these chat rooms.
I know. They don't have MSN chat rooms anymore. Those were fun. But this lady's name illuminated in front of my, everyone else was in the chat room, and hers just illuminated, and it was like, wow, what's that? And all of a sudden, this is the very first time I actually allowed it. Things started coming out of my mouth. I was giving her messages. I was telling her it was her husband, and he chose that time even though he was young, and a bunch of other stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, this can't be happening. What's going on? And then things just kept spewing out. So at the very end, I said, oh, and your wedding song was, and I remember to this day, it was that song from Bread, Baby, I'm a Wancha. And she got quiet. She goes, oh my God, that was our wedding song.
Wow.
So when that concluded, I got off the internet. I stayed up all night. I was like, what just happened?
Wow.
That was like bizarre. That's just how, when you're ready for that next turn, something's going to happen to help you go forward on your journey.
Yes, it's always forward motion. Now, you go into the work on the craniosacral work. Tell me about that. How did that happen?
We have to have our continuing education hours. And I thought, I really want to expand on this energy work. And I knew when I was reading up on cranial, I knew that was the one I wanted to take a class with. So I took the first course. There's 3 of them, cranial 1, 2, and 3. After cranial 1, it shifted me into another, to me, it was almost like another level, another lifetime. Whatever it was, I had changed. And doing cranial work, I'm taken to a whole new place. And it's still hands-on, it's still touching, but it's not really, it's so hard to describe that. It's an energy at a different level. That's what I'm trying to say.
Are you moving energy, or are you receiving information? What is that?
I'm definitely receiving information. The cranial is actually trying to get that fluid flowing from the cranial down through the sacral. So you're trying to get that wave going. And that's a physical thing, but it's so much more than that. There's messages that come there. Everyone's session is so different. Some people will feel the wave. Some people see visions. Some people see colors. I didn't even know until later on that I was actually moving someone's brain.
Ooh.
When I was working with my friend, I didn't know that was happening. It was like my hands began to move in a different way. And I was like, no, that's not what I was taught. And the hand kept moving. And I kept thinking, what is this? So I had to contact my mentor, Marcia Craven. And I said, what happened? This friend of mine said I moved her brain and my hands. And she goes, you did. You did all that. And I go, you didn't teach that. And she goes, you can't teach that. You can't teach that.
Wow.
So you need to understand that, allow this work, allow your hands to be where they're supposed to be, and, just go with it and trust that we're never working alone.
Yeah.
We've got I call them my healing guides that are working with me.
Yes.
We do have healing guides. We have, lots of different teachers that come in.
Yes. Now, somewhere along the way, you were probably given some belief systems. Did you have belief systems that enabled you to do this, or did you have limiting belief systems that said that, you shouldn't do that?
I grew up with some limiting belief systems, and, it was religion, and there was a part of me that sat down as a child to say, no, but I was told yes, yes, but I always knew this is not who I am, and I felt, as a child, I felt different, and I didn't know why I was different. I didn't understand, being an empath and hearing things and getting messages. But the word was, this is not you.
Oh, wow. Even as a child, a young person. Yeah, I was given a set of belief systems. I went, okay, I just believe that's what we're supposed to believe.
And that's what we're raised to believe.
And even if I was sad and depressed, I'm like, so it's all about going to heaven and hell? That's all this whole thing?
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty much all it's about.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is it?
No,
That's
there's
it?
more.
You know,
Yeah.
there's so much
that can't
more.
be all there is. That can't be.
Yeah, it just seemed so so simplified. This
Yeah.
whole human experience is simply about getting out of here to get to somewhere else. That's all this is. And, well, yeah, basically, I'm like, it just left
If
me
you're a
depressed.
good person and you treat people good, you're going to go to heaven.
Yeah.
If you're a bad person, you go to hell.
Yeah, well, see, I wasn't given that as a narrative. I said that the narrative I was given, I was told that I was inherently, I had original sin and I was evil inherently and I needed salvation. That's how I got to heaven. And being a good person didn't get me to heaven. In fact, I had people that taught me good people go to hell all the time because they didn't accept Jesus. And so I had a belief system that said it doesn't matter if you're good or bad. You have to have substitutionary atonement. So that gave me this fear like, well, what if I don't get it right? So that was a spiritual anxiety. And so now I'm letting go of that spiritual anxiety and I'm embracing this system in which it's okay to explore and experience because you're going to be fine in the end.
Yes. Yes. I mean, there were so many different avenues that I think I could have gone. Being raised as a child, if I had allowed those belief systems to stick with me, but there was something very strong within my soul that said, this is not how you're going to live your life.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because you already had your intuition working, and even as a small age, when you're like, this is a belief system that I have. This is the truth that I can feel, even if somebody in authority is telling me something different. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
I think that's why I was rebellious a lot as a child.
Well, I'm sure there are many reasons why. Right?
Yeah. Still a little bit on the rebellious side, but that's okay.
Walk fist up in the air. Yeah.
It's how I roll.
Yeah, that's how I roll.
Yeah, that's how I roll.
So as you've done this work, you've helped transform people. You've given them information. You've also got books that you've written. You told me that you did work in hospice and you started using this. So I know there's a lot of things I'm like throwing at the wall. Begin to integrate the authorship, the hospice work, and White Dove. Kind of tell me how all this came about. Well,
it's one of those things that in my soul, I knew that I was White Dove. I've always felt that. I was always drawn to the White Dove. Don't ask me why. I look back at some of my old poetry that I'd written and there was like a dove, or that. And, so when I had that vision of, it's you, White Dove, and you're carrying this healing over, into this lifetime, I thought, okay, I'm White Dove. Yeah. And so I had, during this journey of starting this new healing, that's when I started the poetry again. I'd written poetry my whole life. This was a whole different phase of poetry that was coming through. We never, as writers, in my opinion, just sit down and have it come from us. It doesn't happen that way. I sit down and it just flows out. It comes from lots of places. I felt like I'm not going to write the book because how many people like poetry? One of these days I might publish a book to leave it for the family as my legacy, but I kept getting that urge, like, people need to hear the words.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was kind of interesting. That kind of made me decide to want to do the first book was, do you remember the old MySpace?
Oh, yeah.
So I was posting a couple poetry.
MySpace is still
around. So I started to blog a little bit and put a little bit of my poems on there. And I put I think it was Dragonfly Speaks I put on there. And once again, you never know who's going to see it. Right out of the blue, some lady said, I don't know how I found you. We're not friends on MySpace. I saw your poem and I wanted to share something with you about the dragonfly. And she had lost an infant and she was very depressed. And her husband was trying to do everything he could to help her to get out of her funk and took her out on the lake in a canoe. And she was sitting in the canoe looking around. Thousands of dragonflies came around her, and she realized that was her daughter. And that was a huge turnaround for her. And she wrote to me and she said, you really hit me that day with that poem. And I need you to understand, you need to share your words with people.
Boy.
And I sat back and that's when I realized, well, you know, maybe it's not for me to hold on to all that. Maybe I'm supposed to share it and maybe it'll reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, the second poem I put on there was some kid in New York. He was going to commit suicide. And I don't remember what poem it was at that point, but he sent me this message that said, you have no idea what your words did. I was going to commit suicide. And because of whatever those phrases that you had, it stopped me. And I've decided I want to live after all.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, I'm going to put everything together, put it in a book, and if it reaches people that it needs to reach, then I've done my job, right?
That's good. See, you're still listening to the intuition. It's always this internal guidance system.
It is always there.
Yeah. And then did you did some hospice work. Was that at the time you were doing writing at the same time?
Yeah. I'd had several poems. I would say I opened up a new phase of poetry writing when I graduated. And, you know, I started working with hospice kind of part-time while I was still with the chiropractor.
Yeah.
And one day I woke up and said, I can't do this. I don't belong with the chiropractor anymore. I have to go full. That was a scary thing. You don't just, I'm raising 2 kids as a single mom. And I make this decision just somehow knowing it's going to be okay. You know, as soon as I did that, they gave me more work than I could handle. So yeah, it was perfect. Yeah. Perfect timing.
That's really good because there's a lot of people that are like, oh, they're held back with that fear. I don't know if I can pay the bills, or I've got a sweet gig right here, and they're feeling like they should change. But when you have that space of, I'm just going to do it. And if it's that thing where the universe is like, yep, and boom, they're there to catch you. It's a beautiful way to transition.
It's one of the things that I guess I didn't realize one of my strength was I might be scared to death, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to have that step of faith, take the leap, and you'll find that's how that whole thing works.
Yes. Yes.
So when you were in the hospice, what were some experiences that you had with people? Was it, what was the capacity that you were working?
I was one of the ones that was the hardest working because I took everything that came along at that point in time. I was seeing, I was in 15 to 20 patients a week. That included driving, but it was only on a particular area. So it wasn't like I was driving to Tempe or Scottsdale. It was on the west side. So I was busy, but it happened right when my younger son graduated high school and decided to go live with his dad for a while. Nobody needed me. Yeah. So it was perfect to step in and go, I can do whatever hours I want to do. Yeah. So I was full time.
In what capacity? Was it doing massage work?
I was doing massage therapy.
Yeah. And then were you present when people had transitioned?
Yes.
Tell me about the process that you have experienced when someone is transitioning through death into the other side.
What was interesting is my very, very first patient. There was an elderly lady, and we bonded very quickly. She had 3 daughters, and she was a professional dancer. There was so much like my mom that was like her. And I began to realize something. I was there when my mom transitioned. I was able to experience what happens when you're transitioning and going from this side to that side. And it was an incredible experience until her last breath. I was there. Wow. Okay. And she began to be into her transitioning, and the daughters were freaked out. And what's happening? Is she in pain? Is she in agony? And I was able to sit down and go, no. This is part of her transitioning. There's no pain. This is how she's, getting ready to, and so they calmed down and they were able to sit with her, and I stayed there with them, and then she took her last breath.
There are a lot of people that are absolutely terrified of dying. I've known family members in my life that have the impression that when they die, their body's just going to be in a box and they're going to get eaten by worms, and that whole impression just freaks them out and petrifies them. Give some presence to those folks about what is that death process that we go through, and how do we transition, and then kind of what happens?
I think a lot of my patients had a lot of that fear in the beginning, but it's one of those things that as they accept the journey, as they're going along, and they have a lot of guidance. Hospice gives so much guidance and support. We're the chaplains, we have the nurses, we have the social workers, and even us as massage therapists, there's always these communications going. And, I even had a lady saying, I'm pretty angry right now. And I said, I get that. I get that. And it's a personal, internal thing for each person. Yeah. Some people would go very peacefully. Some people would fight it. And I think it kind of depends on how they've lived their life, because, I took care of my brother, and he transitioned, and he was absolutely petrified. And so what I tried to do I did it with him, and I did it with some of my other patients, is I took them on a guided journey. Guided meditation, let's go through this and let's talk about that. And I would have music on, and we would be able to have this journey, and it helped them to calm down.
That's beautiful.
I can't change anyone's belief system. Yeah. That's not my goal. My goal is to just kind of get them to settle down and kind of just breathe with it.
So when you're guiding them, are you guiding them into what would happen, or just guiding them into calm?
I would guide them into calm, and I would intuitively do it differently for each person, depending, because, most of the time I was working with them for about 3 or 4 months. You get to know people, and you kind of know what maybe they're open to and what they're not open to. I had a gentleman that, I knew in my heart of hearts, I couldn't share a lot with him. And I remember he would say, he would watch food shows, turn on Rachel Ray, let's turn her on while you're doing this work on me. And I remember standing up and changing the channel, and somebody pushed me. And I didn't turn around. I just said, who is that? And she said, it's Barbara. I was like, okay. And then I turned around and I started working on him. I was kind of like, okay, what does this mean? And within 15 minutes, he said, did I ever show you a picture of my wife? She's been gone 5 years. And I said, no. And he pulled her out and he said, her name is Barbara.
Wow.
And all of a sudden it clicked that he was going to be gone in a very short period of time. And within a week, he was. But I knew that she was there. Yep. Like some people, they're there and they're going to be there for you. You don't have to be afraid. Someone's going to meet you there. And I think that's one of the big things about, we don't just transition and we're alone. There's somebody there. There may be a whole slew of them. There may be just our loved ones. It might be guides and angels, but we're not alone at all when we're transitioning.
That's beautiful. There are people that just think death is scary. It's going into this black void. I'm super afraid. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not afraid of dying. I don't want the pain. I mean, there's all these things. And I've heard so many stories of this peaceful transfer of existence from one side to the other. And even in my study of near-death experiences, a lot of people, when they cross to the other side, they're like, well, I can't be dead because I'm still here.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, your consciousness is still here, but your body's there. And they'll look and see their body. Yeah. Now, in a near-death experience, they go back. That's why it's called near-death.
Right.
But after I read Journey of Souls and heard Newton talk about all of the different life between life experiences, they're like, yeah, I died and I transitioned. Give some presence to people. What that process is, it's not scary.
It is not scary. As a matter of fact, and I was with a lot of people who transitioned, and there is probably the utmost peace in the entire room, because I was, we're all in there while they're transitioning. There's so much peace, and actually there's so much love with that. And death is nothing to be afraid of. That's what hospice taught me. Yeah. Don't be afraid of death. Yeah. Not that I was necessarily, I thought, well, maybe it's not going to be a fun way to go, but you know what? It's a beautiful thing. And that's what hospice taught me. It's nothing to fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of the process.
It's part of the process.
So that's a takeaway. If you are afraid of death, just remember there's nothing to fear. Fear of the unknown is a natural thing. I'm afraid of something I don't know about.
Right.
Oh, I don't know, you know.
And you know what? What's interesting is, there would be a bunch of family members and, because we had our units and people would go to units or sometimes they would stay at home and the family would be really frustrated and tense, like they're in pain, they're in agony. And, you say to that person, are you? No, I'm good. It's those that are going to stay behind, so one of the things my brother taught me, he taught me how to be a caregiver because I was a hospice worker while I took care of my brother. And he taught me a different way. In other words, there's two aspects to this. There's being the worker and I became a caregiver. Oh. So when I said to him, you're giving me a gift. And he goes, really? Me? I said, yes, you are. You're helping me to take care of you and learn to be a caregiver. Yeah. So the next morning, I showed up to see a patient who was in a hospital bed. The spouse opened the door. She was hysterical, crying, hadn't slept. She just I don't know what to do. I can't deal with this anymore. I need help. I realized the patient was fine in his hospital bed. He could stay there for a few minutes. I needed to take her into another room and work with her and help her. And that's when it hit me. That was my brother's gift. I was a caregiver and I understood that caregiver needed help probably more than the patient did.
Yeah. Isn't that fun how you can take that thing that you've worked through and then you can use that as a gift to help someone else?
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Yes. And, hospice was it was just a fabulous learning tool for me. I was with them for 9 years. And it helped me when I had my own breast cancer journey. It helped me make decisions on my own of what I would and would not do. So I'm very thankful for that. I wasn't there, I think, just for learning how to deal with the breast cancer down the road. I was there to help certain people, and they were there to help me as well.
Yeah. No, you've had quite an experience, and I love how you've been able to look at the different seasons that you've had in your life, these transitional periods, and you've been able to work through them. And I'm sure you've had your obstacles and your trials and your tribulations.
Oh, yes.
Life's amazing. I never have any problems. And that's probably not the story with you.
No.
But give some presence to the journey that we have here and the things that people are going through. They're all worried and they're stressed out and this, relationship and the job and all. Give some presence to the whole thing and help us all relax a little bit about it.
I guess probably I was always a caregiver my whole life, always taking care of other people, always, it was never about me, and I remembered not being happy in my life and wondering what is going on? Why, I've got this happening in my life and that person, but I was not happy. And, but I knew that I was supposed to be there to take care of people. That's what I was raised as a child. I had to take care of my siblings. Yeah. And when it got to the point where, I got the breast cancer, that was my second 2x4, whereas have you been taking care of yourself? Look what you allowed in your life and the stress. Your emotional became physical. Yeah. And I learned that life is just too short. That was a hard lesson for me to have and deal with. And I had to recuperate for, 8 weeks. I had a lot of thinking to do and to think, you know what? I have not been nurturing myself. I've been letting things get to me for a long time, and it's time to make a change. Yeah. And my whole body had to change because we're so used to that fight or flight mode.
Oh, that's stress.
We're always like this. And I was always like that. I did not know. Even though I was hospice worker, did meditation, I really didn't know how to change that energy level so that I wouldn't let it take on that physical form.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you do, meditation or grounding? What are some of the things you do to find that connection?
I began to write more. Writing is very, very healing for me. I began to do more nature walks. Being out in nature, that's when I started finding my heart rocks that I collect. Started going out in nature, and there was a heart rock here and a heart rock there.
You mean like a rock shaped like a heart?
Yes.
Incredible.
They're everywhere. And that's where I think I can hear spirit better, is out in nature. And I also began to, somebody's touching my little cheek there. And I began to travel.
Wait a minute. I don't want to lose that. So you're feeling some spiritual thing. Really?
Okay. Yeah, that's all right. They've been standing here for a while, but I don't know who it is. I'm trying to have this conversation. So, okay. No, they haven't given me a name, so we'll just let that be. So I began to, I know they wanted to say, I'm standing here. Would you, acknowledge me? So after the breast cancer journey and I started to do the nature walks, I said, I'm going to travel. All those places that I wanted to go to, I'm going. So I went to Maui and St. Thomas, and that's kind of how my journey began to change.
Those are the places I would like to go to.
And you know what? Let me share.
I have relatives that are like, I want to go to Alaska where it's cold. I'm like, not me.
Yeah, I want to go to the fun Caribbean places. Yeah. So when we did a spiritual retreat to Maui, this was when I was first diagnosed and I hadn't had the surgery. We were out there on the way to Rotohana, and there was some lava rocks in the water out in the ocean, and we all went to our little favorite spot. And I looked out there, and I wasn't really angry with the cancer. I just wasn't happy about the whole situation. And this, once again, that deep voice says, you're not being torn apart, you're being put back right.
Oh, wow.
And of course I turned thinking, and there was nobody there. Yeah. And that changed everything in that moment for me. I knew I didn't want to experience it. I didn't want to have it, but I was going to be put back right. Wow. So it was a good thing I went to Maui. I mean, I knew that I wanted to go and have the spiritual retreat before all of this happened. So once again, everything happens for a reason. So we all have that intuition. There's so many people that say, well, that's nice that happened to you, but nothing ever happens to me. You're not really listening. You're not open. You need to chill out to that point where they can listen, That's
a really good point. So instead of I got to find the answer. I got to listen. I'm just going to meditate really hard. Just find that calm down.
Exactly.
What do you do to find that? How do you do you connect to your breath? How do you do that?
I do connect to the breath. I have one of those far infrared biomats, and I like to lay on that, and that just puts me into a whole level, up here stressed. No, I'm going to go lay on here, and for a whole hour, it works for me, and it just helps. Some people, say they want to have music, or, I have to have it absolute quiet for me.
That's good.
Absolute quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, when I have music playing, I'm trying to figure out the chord pattern of the rhythm. It doesn't work for me. It's my musician mind works. I'm like, what is that? The key of G?
Yeah, have to have it absolute quiet. Yeah. I mean, I still have a mind that doesn't shut up. I have to admit. It's everywhere. Yeah. Squirrel. That's just squirrel. That's what I do. But I can admit that about myself. In fact, somebody had said something years ago like, you're so neurotic. And I had a friend come up and go, she's not neurotic, she's passionate.
Yeah,
I go, yeah, that's what it is.
That's a good
But
friend.
I have a mind that it takes extra work to shut it off. And even then, it doesn't shut off. Now, in my meditation phase, I came up with something. I'm sure other people might use something similar. When you're in that meditation phase, you have a blackboard. And an eraser. You've got all these things on the blackboard that you have to have done that day that you're thinking about. You just erase that. Oh. Now, granted, some of it's going to come back. You just keep erasing that, and at some point, it's going to be one little phrase or one little word, and you can shut that down to the point where you can open up and listen to the messages.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Do you feel like there is any intuitive information that you have for anyone listening? Is there any messages that you feel coming through for anything specific?
I'm kind of getting urged to, there's like this reminder of we're not in the same phase that we were before on this planet. And they're showing me that there's a bunch of beings and guides waiting to come through for people if they would, chill out and relax and let some things go, because they want to come in. And I think there's a lot of new guides that are coming in for people right now, because a lot of people are shifting and doing totally different things in their life than they ever have. Yeah. So they're like, they're showing me, I know, they're showing me a stage. I know. They're showing me a stage.
It. We're filming. That's rude.
They're showing me a stage where they're like waiting in the wings, and there's a bunch of them.
Wow.
And so, the message to people is, they want to help you and they want to work with you, and don't fight. Don't fight don't fight the river. I have some poem I wrote. Don't fight the flow, because you don't want a 2x4. And they're very gentle and loving, and they just want to help you. Yeah. And we all have them. We all have guides and angels, all of us.
That's beautiful. We're all going the same direction. It's all consciousness moving forward. Give presence to your website and how people can contact you.
The website is pamsears.com. There's information on all the different modalities that I do. They can send me an email from there. They can give me a phone call. I have a blog on there that they can go and read some of the poems and some other things that have come through if they feel guided to read something.
And you kind of had that cool niche at the party. Is that something that you do where you go to events? Tell me about the events.
Yeah. I'll go to an event and, I'll, like Lori's party, got my table set up, and, all I do is just, sit down, open things up to allow everyone to come in. And it amazes me how people are so much more open now than they ever used to be. Yeah. And those are fun things to do. Parties are fun. Very fun.
Tell me about the person that comes to you. All right, go ahead, psychic. Tell me about that type of an individual.
It can be a tad frustrating, but they're there for a lesson to me, and perhaps I'm a lesson to them. Yeah. I can give what I give, and I say to them, I may not be hearing correctly. I'm not perfect. No one's ever 100% accurate. If it doesn't resonate with you, let it go. But they're like, well, tell me why. Well, tell me why. And I'll say, well, because you're supposed to figure that out. Well, what kind of psychic are you? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to give some guidance. And I can say, this is what's going on in your life right now. And they go, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And I'll say, well, once again, and let's pull some more cards if you really have some other questions. There's going to be people like that. I just have to keep breathing and know that, at some point in time, maybe they're going to get something from it.
Have you ever had someone that you told information to and then they said that it was irrelevant and then later came back and told you it was?
I had a lady on my massage table, because some people will come to me for a massage and a reading at the same time. I was giving her so much information. I thought, wow, I am really open. Nothing. Nope. And it was very frustrating, I think, for both of us. And I thought not one thing resonated for her. So sorry, things happen. Maybe we're having an off day. So she went home and she was telling her fiance about this. And he goes, tell me more. And she did. It was his mom. So spirit can come in, anybody, to give a message to somebody else. So she called me back and she goes, you're not going to believe what happened. Boom. It was for him. So then he came to see me so that we could have some more information. And it was kind of funny because his mom wanted to be scattered in the ocean. And there was the husband and the kids were arguing about where to scatter her. And she's like, I told you what to do. Stop arguing. Do it. That's what I want.
Wow.
So that was pretty incredible. Yeah.
Oh, from the other side,
Right.
she's still like, this
This is what I want. I'm
that's what I
very
want.
specific. Crazy.
Wow.
So, you know, years ago, I would not share anything. I would keep it locked inside because it was like, oh no, I don't know what that is. I don't trust myself. I can't do that. And then after a while, I start to realize these people need these messages.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't resonate, it doesn't resonate. But you have to give what comes.
Yeah.
You know, I had another lady that said, well, I didn't want my aunt to come through. I want my mom. I didn't like that aunt. She was a bee, you know. And I said, well, she's got a message for you. And the message was, you're on the same path that I was. Don't do that. And nobody liked this lady. Nobody liked this aunt. And that lady was on that same path. So she got what she needed. And it wasn't for her mom to come through at that time. It was like, I have no control who's going to come through.
Yeah.
Ever.
Unless they're tickling you on the face.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's kind of weird because as we're sitting here, I keep hearing the word Ellen, but I'm not really getting, you know, it's hard to like focus when I'm trying to chat and
We're busy right now. Come back
we're
in a few
busy,
minutes.
but she's saying her name is Ellen, and so it might be she was a school teacher. Something about somebody reads a ton of books, and just because you're a school teacher doesn't mean you read a ton of books. But she was also, you know, like borderline teacher, and then could have gone librarian. Something having to do with March, and the number 7, and the number 3. Now that could be 3 could be somebody's birthday. It could be 3 kids. So I'm just giving that. And she said she's been waiting very patiently, and that's why she started to. So there must be somebody who needs to hear something. I'm getting like she's somebody's aunt, not a mom. She's an aunt. Kind of a pudgy around, and perhaps she liked to bake because she's got an apron on, some curly hair, old-fashioned glasses where those, you know, when
the chain thing?
the chain on it. Something about she wanted to be a dancer, but they told her she couldn't dance, and she wasn't a very good dancer. So she let that go instead of following that passion. So she didn't listen. And maybe that's for whoever it may be for out there. Maybe that's just it.
Yeah.
Don't listen to what others say. If you have a passion, go with it. So,
I love to say, don't let the voice of others drown out your own intuitive voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the phrase I'm just hearing is, I've said my piece. Short and sweet. Sometimes that's what happens. I've said my piece. So
Maybe that's for someone right there. Yeah.
could be.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
For somebody out there. So it was like, I feel better when, like, if you don't really like listen, and they're going to keep at you until, you know, okay, give this message, and then everything calms down a little bit. So yeah,
It calms down.
I feel good.
It's good.
A little hot in here, but I feel good.
Nice. Pam, it's been a wonderful conversation that we've had today. And I like to end the episode with, if there's one thing that people take away from today's episode, if there's this one thing you want to make sure people really understand, it's this thing. What would that thing be for you?
You know, it's honoring yourself. It's honoring what's your heart is telling you. You know, you may end up going through changes and things may be a rough patch, but you need to honor what's happening with you and listen to yourself above anybody else. It's okay to go and ask for guidance, but we have our own internal compass, and we got to listen to that.
Yeah. Awesome. PamSears.com. Check it out. Find a way to connect with Pam. She's amazing.
Thank you.
High five.
I'm David Marsh, and you've been watching Exploring the Human Journey on YouTube as a video and listening as a podcast. If you would like to help continue the conversation, please consider supporting us by visiting patreon.com, where you can support us on a monthly basis and get extra bonus content. For as little as $1 a month, you can make this show sustainable and help continue spiritual consciousness. You can also help by following us on Facebook and Instagram. For more information about the show, find us online at exploringthehumanjourney.com.